When everything's destroyed, what grows in its place?
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died. The radiation released from the Chernobyl plant was greater than that from all previous nuclear tests and atomic bomb explosions combined.
For people who develop radiation sickness, there is no treatment.
If Chernobyl never happened, my life would be very different. I'd probably not even be playing tennis.
Maria Sharapova has won 3 Grand Slam championships and at 23 years old is the highest paid female athlete on the planet, earning about $20 million a year. She has her own fashion line, endorsement deals, and a glamorous life in Los Angeles. But the chain reaction that led her here started in a much darker place. A tower of a nuclear reactor on the other side of the world, more than 24 years ago.
2 days or 3 days after disaster happened, we just started watching TV, and nobody really get this feeling of catastrophe and how big it was.
Yuri Sharapov and his wife, Yelena, were living less than 100 miles from Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear power plant when on April 26, 1986, a safety test went horribly wrong. There was an explosion and a deadly cloud of radiation.
Oh my God, it's just crazy. And people start get panic and pick up the bag, and if they have chance, just try to escape.
Yuri and his wife initially stayed, but 4 months after the disaster, she discovered she was pregnant. As radiation particles drifted into their town, those around the Sharapovs began to suffer illnesses and birth defects. So the couple decided they'd flee to live with family in western Siberia, where in April of 1987, Maria was born.
It's crazy to think that I could have been born in the midst of Chernobyl. I remember my mom and my dad telling me that it was really chaos. Everyone just wanted to leave, and they were leaving everything in their house, their valuables and their photographs and memorabilia, and the only thing that they would take is their passport.
When Maria was 2, the family moved to Sochi, at the time one of the few places in Russia where tennis was popular. By age 6, she was good enough to earn a trip to a clinic in Moscow. By chance, the clinic had a visitor, 9-time Wimbledon champion Martina Navratilova.
I said, that girl's going to be good, and I was asked what I thought she should be doing. I said, go to the States to really hone the game and hone the skills and get the attitude.
She pulled my dad aside and said that I had potential and we should do something about it. But knowing the conditions in Russia, you didn't have much indoor facilities there, and if you did, they're really expensive and not affordable. So we needed to make some sort of change if I was going to continue playing.
But the Soviet Union had collapsed only 2 years earlier. Getting permission to leave the country was still nearly impossible. A few months after the encounter with Navratilova, Yuri was informed he and Maria had been granted exit visas. But Maria would have to leave her mother and everything else she'd ever known.
The only thing I really remember is packing up my books. I told my mom, I said, I want to make sure that I have a piece of my country with me.
Maria and Yuri arrived in Florida in 1994, shortly before Maria's 7th birthday. But Maria was unable to get into a top-flight tennis academy because she was too young. With limited English skills and little money, Yuri struggled to make ends meet. To provide Maria with tennis lessons, he juggled low-paying jobs, some days working construction, others sweeping up at a grocery store.
The first obstacles, I remember I had a few bucks in the pocket, no place to stay. And the people told me, you know what, you're not going to pay, you will be on the street tomorrow. I said, you cannot push me on the street with little girl, 7 years old. You cannot do it. No, I can't.
I spent a lot of time on my own. His work hours were all over the map. A lot of them were night hours. He would make rice for me in the middle of the night when he'd come back, and then, you know, kind of put it under the pillow and warm it up so it stayed warm. And then I would wake up and I'd have it in the morning for breakfast.
Relief finally came at the end of their second year in the U.S. Maria's mother obtained entry into the country, and Maria, at 9, earned a tennis academy scholarship worth more than $30,000. 8 years later, she'd break through to win Wimbledon at 17 years old.
A 17-year-old champion.
But there were still hardships along the way, and in 2008, a major scare, torn tendons in her right serving shoulder.
I think a rotator cuff surgery, it's probably one of the toughest injuries you can have as a tennis player. I mean, a lot of people don't even come back from that.
You find your own way because you really have no choice. You're only given a certain direction, and you either take it or you break down.
Your family clearly has a survivor's mentality. How do you think that mentality that you come from influenced your approach to just the way you play the game of tennis?
Yeah, my parents took a lot of chances in their life. Growing up, I was always surrounded by those decisions, and I think in a way, subconsciously, I learned from that, and it really meant that they wanted me to do something that I loved in my life, that I really loved playing tennis, and I couldn't wait to wake up and go out on the court and play.
Sharapova returned to the tennis tour in the spring of 2009. Having had nearly a year off to reevaluate her life, she found herself thinking more about the places that shaped her, the area around Chernobyl, the place her family once called home. This summer, she made plans to travel back there for the first time in 11 years.
What do you think it's actually going to be like? What are you expecting?
Since I haven't been there for so long, I really don't know. It's a little bit of a, you know, it's very different to what we're used to. It's not as a developed country, so you know, everything is a little bit more worn down and not as new and fresh.
What do you think the impact is going to be on you of actually seeing it, since you've been hearing about it and thinking about it for so long?
To hear stories from people and from the kids and see how they've affected. It's really sad on one part, but the good thing is that, you know, that's why we're here. Is we're really here to help them.
Her first stop, a local hospital, where Sharapova talked to doctors about the effects of Chernobyl's radiation. More than 2 decades after the disaster, there's been a 1,400% increase in children diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
Есть такой детский фильм «Мимо», да? «Мимо», это похоже очень.
Next up, a cultural center and a tennis clinic.
You hit the first ball. Here, I'll feed it to you.
Before her visit, Sharapova donated about $300,000 to charity programs here. During her stay, she announced an additional $250,000 would be added to create sports and recreational facilities.
One of the most important things for me is to get the children to be active and to go outside and play sports. I see this expanding in many different directions. I think this is going to be a huge part of my life when I finish my career.
You're the female athlete who makes more money than any other woman athlete in the world. Should you be giving more money now to these programs?
We wanted to start slow because we wanted to see the reaction and the appeal of our goals, and we wanted to see how the towns would react.
Before leaving, Sharapova also stopped at an apartment building she'd often visited as a child, the building her parents had lived in during the Chernobyl catastrophe.
They can't believe how tall I am.
2 дня назад.
Да.
Я только телевизор смотрю, как вчера это было.
Да.
И в жизни я не поверил своим глазам.
He says he just saw me. He just saw me play against Serena in Wimbledon, and he's like, "You're here. How did you get here so fast?"
The technology, right?
Technology.
You've lived so many places. How real is your connection to this place?
It's very real. It's probably, one of my closest places that I can call home. Even though I didn't actually live here steadily, all my family pretty much was from here. This is where it all started. That was a big part of my childhood.
The people remember her when she was 2 years old, and the lady remember how he grabbed her hairs and pulled her hairs out.
I did that to her?
You did that. You did to her.
Probably when you were living here, there's no way you'd imagine we'd get out of here, right?
You never think about it. You don't want to get out because you didn't know what in the future. You just take one day at a time and live your life, so.
As Sharapova boarded the plane home, she said she was once again taking a part of this place with her. The young woman whose family fought first out of the shadow of the reactor, then out of the desolation of Siberia and the ruins of communist Russia, realizes how the chain reaction that set off the explosion at Chernobyl set off a chain reaction in her own life.
It's crazy to think about the what ifs. What if I was never a tennis player? It does cross my mind sometimes. I really don't know what that feels like. I really don't want to know because I'm really grateful for what I had and for what I did, and what I became and what I've achieved.